Wait, you don't got no air in there?
Nah, maybe we don't got AC.
I, I can see, I can see the perspiration happening right now as we as we speak. Well, word, peace, peace, peace. I am Philip Roundtree, and you are tuned into episode. Thought I said the word wrong. 62 of the hashtag You Good Man Men's Wellness podcast. As always, I am joined by the good brother Michael Olenek, who is been joining me now. We've been doing this consistently now for like I want to say like 5 weeks. I'm not used to this. We had the little week off, but I even managed to upload a previous episode of us. I'm not used to this level of consistency in my life.
I'm happy to be a part of the consistency, man. I like that we throw this down every week.
Word, word. Yeah, it's refreshing for me to be in conversation with you on a weekly basis. Just somebody who I respect highly, of course, somebody I love, a good brother, and we need more of that, right? We need more healthy conversations with other brothers. I know that it's not necessarily something I get on a day to day basis. A lot of times, and we've talked about this, so I'm not going to belabor the point. Most interactions that I get with other brothers are at the gym, and they're well meaning, well intentioned, but even still, I found myself falling into some of those. I'm not going to say traps, but falling into behaviors. I'm trying to figure out how I kind of explain this. And maybe I'll explain the situation, right? So the gym that I go to, it's I call it South America, right? And again, I know there are women who listen here. This isn't to say that there's some ethnicity of women who looks better than the other. I don't get into the hierarchy of looks. I don't even like I'm going away from complimenting people for hitting the genetic lottery. Like, I'm going away from that, right? Because you literally had nothing to do with it. You look beautiful. You look amazing. Maybe I should say that to your parents, but not, or the donor or the egg, but definitely not you, right? Because you had nothing to do with it. Or maybe you did because you were the fastest swimmer out of a billion or so, right? You was on the move, so. But the gym I go to is heavily populated with women specifically from South America. And so with men, you think they've never seen a woman who they're attracted to. And so anytime there's one, and again, it's plentiful in there. But anytime, and again, here I am chuckling because it's I am human still, right? I am human, and that's okay, right? Where, but the brothers, the gawking, right? The comments to other brothers about the physical stature of a woman, and sometimes to my side, I just chuckle, right? If they say something to me, I just chuckle, and it's more so an uncomfortable chuckle, which again we
Hmm.
talked
Hmm.
about that we trying
Hmm.
to navigate, and then also, is this the moment where I feel like teaching?
Mm.
Right,
Mm.
we have to always ask ourselves that. So for me in the gym, I'm about to squat 400 pounds, and you make an off color comment that I may or may not chuckle to because I don't want to make it seem like I'm always like giggling, like, oh, that's or enabling in that way or affirming their perspective on it. But there are times when a part of that is just like, all right, yo, I'm gonna laugh just to get away from me, right? Just so you. But again, I understand how that could be perceived both by the individual, like, hey, we're in tune. When in actuality, we're probably not. Or, hey, this person can be beautiful, but to make comments about specifically about the physique or things like that, it's just like it's tired, right?
Yeah, I'm with you and I relate. I, like you said, it's tired and I totally hear you. And like mine's like a little bit extra because sometimes like I still have what I call the straight armor, right?
Hmm.
I have the things that I perfected growing up as someone who didn't know he was queer but knew something was different, knew he didn't quite fit in with the rest of the guys. So like, listen, I am always keyed into what's going on in sports. Not even because I like sports, but because it is the easiest way in conversation with another like straight cis man to like find them at a level and get a feel. But when it comes to like teaching moments, yeah, I ain't gonna do that at the gym probably. That's just not it's not gonna happen. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I do the same uncomfortable laugh, man. Like I was talking to one guy the other day, and like most of the stuff we talk about is on the same point, but then he'll just go off these tangents when it comes to women, and he loses me because I'm just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna walk off now. You know what I mean? And I don't think that point of awakening is tough for dudes. Like just the other day, I was at the gym with my partner, and men don't understand how they take up other people's personal space at the gym.
Hmm.
They don't get that. Like they think they're either oblivious or they think that like my manliness is gonna give off so strong, this woman's gonna fall for me by standing so close to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and but there have been times I will say where, and I remember one time in particular, it was a Saturday morning. It was a sister. She was definitely well endowed. She was in there, and it was this Jamaican older guy, and he just kept staring at her. Right, and so it's actually happened. I think I've intervened a few times, so I just wasn't a bystander all the time as it may appear. And she says something, right? And so instinctively, because number one, the gym for I look at that as being a safe space to intervene. I'll be honest, if this was on the street, would I intervene as quickly, given how America has beaten into us this in pun intended, this idea of violence. Any encounter is going to be potentially violent, so you best stay away, you best ignore, you best avoid. Right, the same thing that got Seinfeld and them locked up. Right, the Good Samaritan. They didn't intervene, but in this space, it was just like, hey, sister, you okay? Right, are you good? And it was just like, yo, he said, and then he started trying to explain himself. I'm like, fam, you ain't got nothing to explain, right? You just go ahead, go about your business, right? Just go about your business, and it wasn't for accolades, it wasn't for, but it was just the right thing to do, right? It's
Yeah.
not to say she couldn't potentially protect herself, right? Because we got to protect black women, but it was more so of I recognize somebody in distress potentially, and I want her to know that she has a probationary ally who's willing to intervene at any given moment, right? And she should have
Yeah.
that comfort to know that she doesn't have to be psychologically and emotionally or physically accosted just because she's endowed in some capacity. And it was one other incident, and this one was it was so problematic. It was where this older white guy, again, it's full of women from South America, and he was literally recording,
Nah,
right?
nah,
And
nah.
so, yeah, and so for me, and it was like, you know how 5 o'clock's at the gym, and I promise you we're gonna get to the conversation that we're gonna have, but it was, you know
Oh,
how
this is
five
setting
o'clock
up the
at the gym.
conversation. This is setting it
Exactly.
up, man.
Exactly.
This is setting it
You know how 5 o'clock at the gym is, where it's just like 1,000 people in there, and I'm sitting there watching him record like in a slick way, which he thought was slick and wasn't as obvious. He was recording the one trainer. He was recording other women throughout, and I was just like, "Yo, fam, what you doing?" He's like, "Oh, nothing." And I'm about to say a cop friend of mine. Let me stop there.
up.
I have a friend who is a cop. Right? I have a friend who's a cop. He's not a cop friend. Right? He's a friend who just happened to be a cop. And I told him when he in uniform, I don't want to talk to you ever in life, because I don't want to give the perception that I rock out or I believe in what you do. But he told me about this guy had being kicked out from the same guy being kicked out from the gym, a different gym, because of similar behaviors, like this predatory stalking like behavior. And that caused literally a big scene in the gym. Um, Again, when we talk about what our system's going to do, they didn't
Mm,
revoke his membership,
mm,
right? They just said, hey, they gave him a little slap on him. Don't do that anymore. Because why? capitalism, money over
Yeah, we need
everything.
that money still, man. We need
Money
that money.
over money over any type of integrity. So yeah, I just
No,
wanted to
I hear
go
you.
ahead.
I hear you on all that because the way the way that I usually, because I do think men have a responsibility to mark themselves as safe to women. They have a responsibility to give off certain energy, give off certain words or phrases or actions that tell women that you're involved somewhat in the learning process, right? That you are trying to become, as you said, a better ally, a better person that can be relied on with other men involved. And the way I usually go about it at the gym is I'll talk to other women. Like since my partner mentioned how she's felt there, I've talked to other people and been like, how do you feel at times at this gym? And like most of them have said, like, yeah, at times it can feel very cringy and very uncomfortable. And at that point, the way I stop being a bystander is I'll have a conversation with the gym owner. Be like, what kind of space do you want? Now, like you said, like you
Exactly.
said,
Exactly.
capitalism's gonna win. And the majority person at that gym is a bodybuilding male. So like, will it go anywhere? I don't know. But I want to at least, like you said, make it clear to women or femme presenting people at that gym that I'm a safe space, man. You can
Yeah.
rely on me if you feel uncomfortable or like I'm all about like for my partner, like I tell her, I won't make a scene, but if you feel like people are encroaching your space, send me a message while we're at the gym. I'll just walk over because I guarantee you the second I get over there, the movement's going to change because they're going to respect my energy as a man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the difficult and that's a beautiful thing, right? This being able to have that conversation with, again, with this gym in particular, and it's heavily populated with individuals from South America, and I'm trying to think what other countries are heavy there. And I live in Northeast Philadelphia, and it's and what I'm noticing is that just the demographic changing. So I like it just on my block in general. Like a lot of people from Brazil, a lot of people from Colombia who are now moving onto my block. So it's only right that they inhabit the different spaces and that I frequent, right? But then it's just like the language barrier to even be able to communicate that, right?
Mm.
Like it's and this is where we talk about how important proximity is, which you identify. Like I have one friend, she's Asian, Mary, and again gym friends, and she's younger. She's in her 20s, and she said to me one time, she said, "Phil, thank you for never making me feel uncomfortable."
Mm.
Right, and it was just like because I look at her like I mean you once you start getting in your late 30s, your early 40s, and you come across 20-something-year-olds like damn I could be your dad if I got it popping at like 13 or 14 right and so that's how I approach it right and again just my energy in different spaces. I'm not that person. I'm not that brother who's just going to be overtly sexual and problematic in that type way, aggressive. And so when she said that, to me, I was like, "Wait, what you mean?" Because again, I'm just thinking I'm just being me. She's like, "Yeah." Just was in particular, I had this one guy. He just kept trying to have conversations with me, and you're just not like that, right? Like you just laugh, joke, we bust it up, and it's you never make me feel uncomfortable in that way. And it was just like, yeah, because we should be able to exhibit that
Mm.
type of energy, and we should be able to have healthy relationships with people with differing gender identities without this idea, this American colonial idea of hypersexuality that's promoted in literally everything that we do.
Yeah, not everything's that's just because there's a mixture of genders doesn't mean there's anything sexual that needs to exist. Like, not everything's a sexual moment. It just isn't. Like, it,
Yeah,
it just isn't.
yeah, yeah. So I appreciate everybody for indulging us for those first 15 minutes.
Yeah,
But
a little warm up.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
it also it goes into this idea of the father wound that we were had started to talk about a little bit last week as we talked about men and connectedness or a lack thereof and like the origins of that. And so the week prior we I replayed the podcast from 2020, which had the good brother Zane with us as well, where we started talking about the father wound. And for those who aren't familiar with the father wound, just so what it is we're talking about the damage that's done when there's a absent or abusive father. And so this can be physically absent, this can be emotionally absent, this can be psychologically absent, and just the effects that can take that can have on a brother. And one of the things that we just got finished talking about was this idea of hyper masculinity that definitely comes from that can come from a father who hasn't done the work themselves, or a father who wasn't present.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that hypermasculinity. And then say the father is absent in some way. What fills that gap? Your peers. And who are your peers? Probably they're probably dealing with an absent father to some degree too, for the most part, man. Because let's be fair, like most men that have been raising kids up until maybe the last, I don't know, I'd say maybe the last 10, 15 years, not even, maybe 10, 5, we've started talking about the need for a more emotional depth from fathers and like having that kind of access. So listen, if you grew up in the 90s, there's a good chance your dad did not have the emotional depth that you needed to find an accurate representation of masculinity. You didn't. He was living
Yeah.
off the same tropes that he gave to you. And unfortunately, if that hole isn't there, getting filled by him, it's your peers are filling it in. Listen, teenagers, they don't know what's up. Like,
Exactly. And they're going to your friends, your peers are going to fill whatever gap is there. It could be the smallest of smallest of gap, right?
exactly.
They're going to hop in and they're just going to multiply and they're going to widen it right to where there isn't, because that's just what you do at that age. You don't necessarily have that level of awareness. You have impulsivity. We're worried about our peer connectedness at that age, so it's only right that takes place now. But when we couple that with the absence of a primary parent, particularly because yes, you can have an amazing stepfather, right? You can have an amazing male influence, but there is something to be said about that birth fathers specifically and their absence, whether it's by natural causes or but just their lack of ability to be present, right? While they're still inhabiting the earth, that will undoubtedly impact you. So for me, it became pronounced this weekend. Like I started on it in pre-production. We just, as we always do, and I didn't hit record. I started talking about just tired, a bit exhausted, like emotionally exhausted. I had a hell of a weekend emotionally, right? And a part of it I contribute to this idea of the father wound. My biological father, God bless the dead, he was absent, physically absent, and he was trying to navigate his life. It wouldn't be till I learned about him at age 18 by sitting down with him. And he was like, yo, I remember one time I was so high, I was in front of the judge, and it was like, "Who the fuck are you to judge me?" And I was like, maybe that's where I get it from a little bit, right? Like this pushback to authority. Right now, I wasn't battling addiction in that way, but it is one of the reasons why I'm hyper aware of my relationship with things like alcohol and edibles to that effect. But one of the ways I've compensated and overcompensated probably is the relationship that I have with my 14-year-old daughter and my soon to be 2-year-old son, where any type of rejection from them impacts me. Like I'm a feeler by nature, which again could be potentially as a result of the father wound and having to navigate that. But any type of slight rejection from them, I'm just all up in here, right? I'm all up in my chest. I'm questioning if I'm a good father. I always talk about, people say, Phil, you got these degrees, you're doing amazing things in the community. I said, I don't give a fuck about any of that. What do my kids think of me? Right? Like, even though I know, and I always look for validation, that's another aspect of it too, where I don't look for validation through sexual conquest, or maybe part of my academic achievement is a result of just being successful, and validation that maybe was a result of not having earlier on. But I always look for my to my co-parents for validation that I'm a good father. Right? Because in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that I am. If we're being fully transparent, and it's not because I'm co-parenting and it's a little bit of distance, but not a lot. But it just feels like, um, again, hypercritical of myself. And I can be doing everything right, but I'm never going to feel like I am, because ultimately, if something happens in their life going forward, and it's just like, damn, what was my role in that? Right? And again, these are things that I'm working out on my own, because I know I'm a hell of a father to the both of them, and just navigating the stresses and pressures, as navigating depression. That's part of the depression and anxiety, where it offers up these narratives, right, that are so unhealthy, that are so not real, that it can at times make it difficult for you to see the truth, to see the reality. I know yesterday, so my daughter, I bought her a phone, right? And part of buying her a phone, she was to do this 8-week program, and she didn't do it after the first day. It was centered in Black liberation, Black Lives Matter at school. She was gonna get to listen to some amazing speakers, Dr. Carr, Kamika Royal, whose book is over one of my shoulders. And I was like, yo, I'll get you a phone if you do it. She did it for one day. Then and then it was just like, then she hit me with, Daddy, but I really need a phone. It is Apple, so she has an iPhone XR, so that's about to be on the fritz soon. So I ended up ordering her an iPhone 14. Of course, I got a discount on it because I don't pay full price for anything. But I sent it, so she got it yesterday. She called me. I missed the call. Called back like 17 times, no answer. Right? And I'm just like, the shit hurts. Yeah, and I think that's part of where we forget that we're human beings as parents as well. And I know I've talked about a lot of things, but we forget that we're human beings as well. So, but I'm also trying to show grace and recognize, listen, she's 14. She doesn't give a damn about me. She done called her friends. Hey, I'm calling you from my new phone. Right? But as far as like daddy, and there's something to be said about, hey, I'm gonna get up in her, I'm gonna get on her, like, yo, why haven't I heard from you? Like, especially to say thank you, because just to show appreciation and respect and love. And it's not to say that she doesn't, but part of that father wound is relying on your child for emotional sustenance, right? Overly relying on them. And so for me, it's always been, again, with a situation like this, I mean, is she just using me for a cell phone? Like, that thought popped in my head. Like, she only loves me when I do certain things for her. I know that's not the truth. I know when we're together and we're sharing time, I know that her level of comfort to be able to ignore me is a result of me being always there. So it's like a level of comfort, like, hey, man, fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know you gonna be here, dog. I love you. Know I love you. I'm so comfortable that I don't have to try and seek your love. Does that make sense? I know I've said a lot there.
Yeah, no, and let me try to jump in on this.
Yeah, you gotta unpack that. This is a therapeutic session.
our 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 narratives of love are severely impacted by our parents, right? And they're our first attachment figures. They're the people we learn to hopefully build secure attachment with. When that doesn't happen, we're left without a narrative, and we're left with all these these questions like you were describing, like the am I good enough? Yeah, that absolutely comes out of like I so first it's like I hold nothing against my parents. Zero. There's no anger. There's no you should have done better.
Yeah.
There's simply they were human and they didn't have the skills or the tools necessary to meet me where I was. They just didn't. They weren't given to them. So why should I expect them to have them? They both single parents. My mom was less in the picture. My dad tried to raise two single boys, but he lacked emotional depth, man. We didn't hug in that household. We didn't say I love you in that household. You were always kind of left guessing, or you were left to measure yourself up against expectations,
Hmm.
right? It was always about, okay, well, am I following this rule? Am I meeting this expectation? Which, of course, is going to bring about these questions of, am I good enough?
Yeah.
Because me as I am just in the world without the things I need to do to meet expectations. That's already been explained to my small child brain at the age of 6. Like, no, you as yourself is not enough to be worthy of love.
Hmm.
Obviously. Where are your parents at, bro? What are they doing? They're not sending you signals. So I can totally relate. Like, yeah, I don't have kids, but I know that the question of am I good enough in terms of relating to others in the matters of love absolutely comes out of my relationship with my dad or relationship with my mom, or just not having I didn't have I wasn't given that reassurance. So
Yeah.
now I see it, now I search it. And the work now is realizing like when that need for reassurance is a healthy need and when it's one that is purely coming out of like that attachment wound. When is it me just because like do I want my partner closer because I want security to quiet that wound, or do I want my partner closer because I want my partner closer? You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I can totally relate to all those things, and I'm glad to hear that you do have a view of yourself that like parents are humans. Like you, I'm sure you're. I've never seen you interact with your kids, right? But I know for certain that you're a solid father
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's easy. I can see how you carry yourself in the world. I see how you talk about them. There is energy there that says that you are like securely attached to your kid. And the whole reason that she can like blow you off for 17 missed calls is because she feels secure attachment with you. She knows
Exactly.
you're solid. She
Yeah.
knows you're a rock. So she doesn't have the insecure thoughts. So almost like you've done such a good job that your insecurity doesn't make sense to her.
Yeah.
She's like, what
Yeah.
do you mean? like
Indeed. And
like she doesn't have a playbook for that. She's like, what do you mean? You're my dad. Of course, we're good.
yeah.
And you're like, but are we? Are we good?
yeah. And again, and that goes into when we start to understand things like child development, right? So my daughter, her grandmother, who I'm talking about, she's now like we're Facebook friends, and Miss Karen's always good people. She might be watch this, right? She's always supportive and things like that. She's been sending me like old pictures and videos of my daughter, and it was just like, oh, you did love dad, didn't you? And it was just like in a way that was it, in an overt simplistic way that infants and toddlers and young children do, right? It gets a little bit more complex, or what becomes more complex is just our how we think about it, right? And
Mm.
recognizing that they are their own individual. My daughter's mom always reminds me, she's like, and again, I have two great co-parents who do a lot of reassuring. Like if I'm feeling some type of way, like I'll text them like, man, why she ain't, you know, it's like, yo, you taught her to, they remind me like, yo, you taught her to be this way. Like, like, cause one of the things was like, I would never tell her because I said so. Cause I don't
Mm.
want to stifle her voice in any type of way. If she asks me 10 times, I'm gonna give her the reasoning might shorten as the times come, but I always want her to feel like heard. And again, when we talk about just the suppression of voices, that starts in the home, right?
Yeah.
And so part of that was also just this recognition that she's not my vanity project. right?
Mm.
She's not going to be, and
Mm.
we see it so often. Look no further than, again, we talked about sports earlier, where you want somebody to accomplish more than you did. So we start putting folk in AAU tournaments. We want them to be the best basketball player. When we start to unpack why, it's just because, oh, I didn't have the opportunity to do that. Instead
Mm.
of, hey, they might be interested in something else, and just allowing them the space to explore who they are. We forget that they are their own person, and that's something that I've been I've impressed upon her. Like, you are your own person, even if it makes me feel some type of way. As long as it's not harming me in any type of way, you make decisions for you.
Yeah. I
And
love that you don't bring in the because I said so, because it as soon as you said that, I mean, I felt like, whew, getting taken back here, getting taken
yeah,
back. But I can clearly remember a time I was in middle school, probably seventh or eighth grade. I mean, I was starting to get into drugs at this point. So, like, my dad had reasons, right? He had reasons to be how he was. But I remember we lived on the third floor of an apartment building, and I was in this parking lot below looking at our porch, and my dad's on the porch looking down at me and my friends, and he yells at me, "Respect my authority." And I remember my friends just standing there and being like, what does that even mean?
yeah,
Even me sitting there, I was like, how am I supposed to take this? And it made me think about how, like, parenting of that age was that you gave me respect because I simply existed as your parent. I was your biological parent. Therefore, you give me respect. Whereas parenting is moving into a better place of being like, no, you give me respect because I've shown you that, like, I give you respect. That, like, I've established, like they talk about in attachment theory, a secure base for you. Like, you see that you can float out into the world and come back, and it's going to be the same. Nothing's going to change. So, but me growing up, there was no, he wasn't putting enough deposits in to make withdrawals. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
there was
yeah,
insufficient funds in there spiritually and emotionally. I had no reason to respect because I didn't even know, why was I respecting you? Because you have power and control? Because you know me, that don't work. I don't respect, that don't work for me as a person. So, like,
yeah.
I think that's great that you don't operate on the because I said so, because that is so damaging. It teaches the children nothing. What does that mean? It's an empty statement.
Yeah. Well, and I attribute part of that to um, my household wasn't steeped in religiosity. I
Mm.
think that's definitely part of it, where we're talking about whether it's, Christianity, whether it's Islam, and how this power dynamic is supposed to exist within the household, within the family structure. You have, everybody honors God, then you honor the father, then it's the mother, and then the children pick up the rear. People don't recognize when those things were written,
Mm.
and what it looked like for children during that time. We can't ignore the fact that children have just begun to get rights.
Yeah. Talk
Right?
about that.
Like,
That's
this
huge,
isn't,
man. And
yeah,
people underscore that, man. Like, it that's a real thing. Like,
yeah.
we don't respect children of being actual children.
We don't. They're labor. They were labor for a very long time, and we're starting to see some legislation where they're starting to roll back uh,
Yeah, there we go.
uh, the ages of when children are allowed to work, so you can get your working permit. At one point it was 16, now it's like 14 in different places, because we need more people to become space progress. We need more cogs in the wheel to be able to do this. But we recognize that children were merely property
Mm.
for so long in certain cultures.
Well,
Now in other,
if you go straight from the religion standpoint, women and children are property.
well, exactly,
And it's funny
exactly.
you bring up religion, because if I think about my dad, we weren't religious, but my dad grew up in an Irish Catholic household. So absolutely, that influenced how he saw his authority as a parent. It's God given, even if he doesn't think that. You know what I mean? Like this was, even if he's not aware of that, he's operating from this space of like, no, no, no. I saw how my dad and mom did it, so this is how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not necessarily about survival because I know certain people go, well, what about in people love using Africa as examples for child labor, and it's like, well, we're talking about survival here, and so all hands are on deck when we're
Yeah.
trying to survive. And again, we're not even talking about modern day. We're talking about past. But we're talking about enslavement in certain places where, again, the iPhone that I bought, I'm sure the materials were farmed by somebody less than my daughter's age.
Mm.
It's a realistic problematic aspect of it. But again, we're talking about this idea of survival as opposed to, hey, you're just cleaning up the house because I said so, and this is your responsibility, and you get whatever food I give you. You go sleep in the basement. We'll pawn you off or sell you off. And so when we talk about just this shift, and we see that a lot of people have difficulties with this shift in recognizing that children are their own person.
Mm-hmm.
Like we give this arbitrary, and there's no we. However, just for the all intents and purposes, right now, we give this arbitrary age of 18 of being an adult, right? It's just like, okay, now you can make decisions on your own.
Mm.
And it's just like we just generally disregard things like now we've gotten better at having discussions about body autonomy, healthy touch versus bad touch, and yada yada yada. But what about just being our ability to say no?
Mm.
Children ability to say no, I don't want to do that.
Didn't you tell me one time that you told your daughter that she's allowed to tell certain people not to give her a hug in her family or like a kiss? Was that you had a conversation with that one time?
No, 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 no. But I'm
Okay.
I'm on that same type time where it's like there is a
Because
consent.
some people would be clutching their pearls at that comment. Like if you told Aunt so and so, nah, she don't want a hug, Aunt so and so might be like, "What do you mean? We give hugs." And like, but that idea of that a 10-year-old can be like, "No, this is my body." Like I didn't have that
You
kind
know
of
what?
conversation.
We did
Didn't we
have
have
that.
something? We
We
did,
did
yeah.
have a we had a conversation, and because I remember Brittany Cooper. Salute to Brittany Cooper. I was on a panel with her, and this was during the pandemic with her, Damon Young, Ala T. Farmer, a couple other good people, and I was talking about my daughter and our physical interactions and how now she and it started it was a pandemic, so she was probably about 10, 11. I kissed her so much as a child, right? Like I'm the dad that's my son is the same way. I kiss him 75 times. If he comes give me a hug, I'm kissing. I'm doing that nonstop. Now it's if even it's cute. It's still cute the fact that she does it. I'm like, all right, babe, give me a hug. She'll put her head out, and I kiss the top of her head. So it's not kissing her cheek or anything like that, like I used to do. Is she'll put her head out and like, come here, give her. But this is the nuance of our relationship,
Hmm.
and
And that's the
so
whole thing,
yeah,
relationship, man. I
yeah,
didn't have a relationship with my dad. I have a relationship with my mom. That didn't exist.
yeah,
There was rules and obligations, man. That ain't a relationship. There was no
and it,
emotional. There was emotional connection in the sense of I knew that was my father, and I was his son. But that ain't enough. That ain't enough.
and that's when you have the empathy where it's just like the safety first survival for them, right? And maybe thriving will never be on certain people's agenda. They'll never feel comfortable enough to go from living to thriving, to be able to experience all the psychological and emotional joys of things like connectedness and releasing this idea of masculinity. And then there's also a safety component attached to
Mm.
it as well. A lot of parents look at it as, I just want you, this is a dangerous world because the media has done a wonderful job in telling us how fucked up this world is. Even though America is probably one of this, even with the gun violence problem that it undoubtedly has, it's still one of the safest countries to be in the world. But we don't think about that because of how the media perpetuates this idea of consistent violence that takes place. And so as a parent, it's just like, my job is to keep you safe. My job is to keep you safe, and so you can grow up, so you can have an opportunity to grow up. Now, if you're growing up and surviving as well, then you just got to do the work on your own. But it's my responsibility to get you from point A to point B, because I won't be here forever, and I need you to be able to sustain yourself. Again, we look at it from a capitalistic perspective. I need to make sure you got a job and make sure you got stability in that way. If you fucked up, exactly. If you fucked up emotionally or psychologically, then hey, that's on you. But I did my job. It reminds me of I'm gonna say his TV name, because that's the one that we love and respect. Heathcliff Huxtable, when he did the experiment with Theo. And Theo, I believe it was it Monopoly or something like that, and they was playing this rent. And Theo went through this whole soliloquy or monologue and was like, "Dad, why can't you just accept me for me?" And I remember he was like, "Theo, that is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard." And he concluded with, "I brought you in this world, I'll take you out."
Classic.
And then you're like you felt it, because in moments you feel like that. You know what? I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. But then it's like, well, what the hell is that? Why is that so problematic? Why Theo being emotionally expressive as a teenage black boy living in New York City, him emoting to you, and your response was to shut it down, no matter how unrealistic what he was saying about and you having more awareness about the realities of the world. Why couldn't his feelings be validated in that moment in time?
Yeah, and it's like you said, this idea of safety. And why, I mean, this brings us to the systemic level of it, man. Most parents, let's take working class parents, which my parents were. It was a single parent household trying to provide for two boys. So at that point of survival, like you talked about, like, yeah, we ain't hunter-gatherers anymore, but we're still trying to survive. And conditions can be in such a way that, like, survival is, my dad, when it came to parenting, he made sure there was food. He made sure we had clothes.
Yeah.
Right? The basics, they were there. And that's because, like, again, part of it was like he was a single dad working, trying to support two kids. My mom didn't give him money.
Yeah.
So, like, when we look at the systemic stuff, just like with the Huxtable reference you made, yeah, like he's sitting there thinking, well, it's dangerous for an emotionally expressive young black boy to exist in the world. So I might as well crush that now so that you see that that's not an avenue for you. Instead of having like the nuance to be like, how do I encourage this while also teaching him the conditions of the world? Teaching. I think teaching is at the center of parenting. Yeah. If your parenting doesn't have teaching in it, then your parenting's missing something. I know I say that as someone that isn't a parent, but I still stand by that statement.
Yeah. No, I'll affirm it for sure. I'll definitely affirm it. And when we talk about solutions when it comes to the father one, and you brought up just the messaging that you got from your father, whether directly or indirectly, how do you go about, and how have you gone about, I don't want to say erase, because I think erase is, because you can't erase it, right? This is like permanent magic marker. It literally could be something that you're navigating for the rest of your life. But how do you put white out over it? Because you can put a little white, it's there underneath, but you put a little white out under it. Sometimes if you put too much white out on it, it start to crumble a little bit, start to break, you start to see some of the lettering. So how do you navigate that? How do you manage that?
How do I manage that? So first, on the erase thing, I also want to say that even the somewhat poor messaging I received still taught me certain skills that can be used in life to survive. So I'll give that to that. Should it be the main coping strategy I use? No. So, like, how do I cope? How do I what are the solutions in that? I think the first solution in that was actually forgiving my dad. The first solution was recognizing his humanity,
Yeah.
which took a little bit, right? Because I was on drugs from the age of 12 to 19. So like our relationship was complicated, right? So I think the first thing was like seeing that single fatherhood, recognizing that he did not have the skills. He was not given them, just like plenty of men aren't given them to be a father who has emotional depth and can sit there in moments of vulnerability and on discomfort and talk about things that are heavy and hard. So first I recognize that. And then from there, it's kind of recognizing that voice when it starts, like the remnants, the ghosts. I always like calling them ghosts when things that aren't in the past, in the present, come up in my brain, and kind of just giving myself a sense of gentleness in that. Like when I think I need to be doing more, because that's the
Yeah.
main thing my dad beat into my head. I need to be doing more, because like he
Yeah.
hook, line, and sinker into the American work ethic, man. That's just what he believed in. So like remembering that I don't need to be doing more. And then the final thing for me is working with men. Like I can get better with my father wound and my attachment wounds by working with men and helping them see the same awareness,
Yeah.
helping them get to a point where they too can let, because every time I help someone let down those coping strategies that we don't need to use as much anymore, it helps me continue to let them down. Like being in that, like sitting here with you is healing, right?
Yeah.
Because we are creating a space that allows us to really suss out these nuances and figure out what we want to leave behind and what we want to move forward with.
Yeah, I think you highlighted some critical steps that should be taken when we're trying to navigate the impact our fathers have had on us. Starting with the latter, this idea of seeking support, whether it's through being in conversation with myself on a podcast, whether it's starting your own men's group to be able to navigate your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and assisting others in navigating their own, and also seeking some type of a therapeutic intervention if you find that it is impacting your quality of life. I, Even before that, it's just identifying like, hey, this doesn't feel good. What could be the origins of this? And this again where we talk about that idea of support groups, men's groups, and other types of therapeutic intervention. Letting go of that blame that you may have felt or that you feel. A lot of us, whether it's a failed relationship between parents, you automatically think, or between co-parents, parents, what have you, hey, it's my fault. Especially when you're young, you take on that blame, and then that blame just sits and manifests, and it can impact your relationships as you go forward. Then we're talking about, for me, it was important for me to get to know my father, even if it's just in a limited capacity of seeing him as an adult, where I'm on this couch. I'm sitting there with the girl that I was crushing on for like 75 years in the crib, and we listening to him talk, and it was like that forgiveness. Like, damn, dog, your shit was fucked up. You wasn't necessarily in a position to be able to care for me because you couldn't care for yourself. That doesn't excuse it, but I understand it a lot more, and I forgive you. And then just learning more, and because I really don't even, again, my father has been deceased now since, I want to say, 2009. So going on 14 years or so. And prior to, he had met my daughter's mother. She was pregnant with my daughter, and my stepson's son is as well. And just seeing, he was excited to be a grandfather. He even though it was short lived, he didn't get to meet my daughter in that way and be able to engage with her. But even when I think about my stepfather, much better grandparent than being a leader and being a father figure that I needed in that moment in time. But even with him, the forgiveness that I've offered him, because now I see, growing up in the South, I see how his relationship was with his father, who was a taskmaster, who was
Mm.
extremely violent. And now I see how he's come around to say, well, you know, I love you, right? And or I'm proud of you, and to be able to hear that, because he would tell everybody else, and like my mom be like, he tells everybody you're a doctor and this like that, and he's proud of you. But to hear him say it to me, that was like a revelation, but also a part of this forgiveness, a part of the me allowing that when that 8 year old me pops up, to just hug him and say, fam, it's okay. I know how you felt. That's why it's a show, and they're not going to renew it because fuck Hollywood. It's a show called David Makes Man.
Yeah,
And
you've been telling me about
fam,
that show for a minute.
fam, listen, it's when you talk about the father wound, when you talk about a black boy navigating to be a black man. So it goes from him being a David, who's a teenager in Florida, navigating his mother's addiction to prescription pills. He's parentified, raising his younger brother JG, and they're in like the projects. His father figure is a guy named Sky, who he sees get killed. He's extremely brilliant, which again is the case for so many of our black and brown boys. He ends up going to a magnet school where Claire Huxtable is his, I believe, his teacher. I believe she's a teacher, and he's navigating all of this. The second season, he's a full blown adult, which we don't necessarily see in television series. Usually, it's like some chronological, instead of like an overt push to the future, to where he's now in his early 30s. But what will happen is the teenage David will pop up in situations,
Mm.
and he might be silent as an adult at 35, standing there not saying anything. And the teenage him's like, yo, man, you should punch them in the face. You got to strike first, right? And so with that, but one of the most powerful scenes, and it is on my social media, or you can just Google David Makes Man therapy. He finally goes to therapy. He went there. He would go not say nothing like so many of us do. He finally went there, and she's sitting there having a conversation with him, and the teenage David is there telling him, don't say nothing, don't do anything. And she's like, I need you to go in deeper. I need you to go in deeper. What are you seeing? Who's there? And the camera pans to like a 5 year old him with a tear in his eye. And the teenage one runs to go hug him and protect him.
Mm.
Right? And so it's probably one of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen in television, because it encapsulates what so many of us, regarded of race or ethnicity, that we're navigating from boyhood to manhood. How when these younger us pops up, how we're so quick to suppress it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're so quick to give in to whatever that coping strategy was for that time that served us well. I'm going to I'm going to Birmingham, Alabama, and tomorrow, and you'll hear, everybody will hear this the day that you'll hear this. And so, for me, going into public settings, I could be amazing. I could be funny. I can be engaging. I can be, I'm not going to say the life of the party, but I could be gregarious and all of those other adjectives. But then a part of me is the 10-year-old me who in the classroom, sitting in the back of the class. I don't want to say anything. I like staying to myself. And it's what's going to happen is I'm going to be in this setting with these journalists, and I'm going to feel, a little part of me is going to feel inadequate. And that 10-year-old me is going to say, yo, just go back to the hotel, man, and go lay down. And I'm going to have to acknowledge him. I'm going to have to hug on him. I'm going to have to love him and say, yo, you all right now. You got the skills needed to deal with this, to cope with this situation. I got you. I'm going to hold your hand as we progress through this. Right. So, I know I went off on a tangent, but all of this came from the beginning steps to getting to know my father and just understand who he is and who he was. When we talk about this idea of closure, and I will get your perspective, get your final thoughts on it. For me, closure isn't a guarantee, right? Closure isn't, you're not going to necessarily be able to have these final conversations with people to be able to say to get this information, to be able to find out more about your father in that way. I may not have had the opportunity at 18 to be able to have this conversation with them, to be able to help me understand me a little bit more. But for I'm not going to even call it closure, but just a healthy practice that when I work with men who are navigating father wound issues would be to write them a letter, like getting those feelings out in a healthy way. We're not talking about the gym where some physical exertion, but we're talking about literally writing a letter and getting your feelings out about what you experienced. And you can give it to them. If they're not here, you can burn it, you can mail it, you can just keep it. But being able to get that information out, get those thoughts, feelings, and emotions out onto wax, onto paper, it can be game changing, because it has been for so many. What's your idea of closure? Is it really a thing?
So closure. I don't think it's a thing in the way that we like to think of it as, in the sense of a nice bow,
Yeah.
completion. It's over. It's a wrap. You can close that and forget about it forever. I think closure instead feels like the ability to hold something that at one point dragged you down to the very floor. And instead, it's just a part of you now. You move through the world with it in your heart.
Yeah.
And it's something you feel, but it's something you know. You've made a relation. It's like you were talking about reconciling with the old versions of yourself. Like you have decided to tread into that space where you now know that 6-year-old or that 10-year-old version of yourself. You understand their hurt. You understand that wound, so that it isn't this big bad thing. It doesn't have to send you into dysregulation where you give up on everything and go hide.
Yeah.
But yeah, closure. What does closure look like between me and my dad? I think it's still in progress. Because sometimes, like, listen, he remarried and married a younger woman, and has another kid who's 16 now, who's a girl, and it has been interesting to watch him parent her.
Yeah.
Because it's been a very different. Actually, let me scratch that. It was different until she became a teenager, and then boom, I saw my dad. It's funny how that works. Like, there's still some work there for him, because when I see him trying to fix, manage, control her life, I'm like, there he is. There's that guy. He's not completely this new emotional, because sometimes I got to draw boundaries on how much he wants to talk about things, because I'm allowed to say, like, yeah, I've done that work and I need you to do some more work on it before you want to keep pushing into the conversation, because I'm not ready for that. I think that's a big thing to, like, remember, is that, like, just because someone has changed, you can still, like, slow dose that back into your life. You don't gotta just bring them right on in. And then, like, last thing I want to say on that is we are proof that you can mend from the father wound. So, like, the men out there that are like, it's too hard, it's too this, I can't do that. Like, you're wrong, because these two men on the screen have done that and continue to do that. So it is possible for you to get that sense of closure too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important, if they say you can't do it, understanding what's pushing this narrative that you can't. Because it's not necessarily you. It's your experiences throughout your lifetime that are impacting how you show up today. And that's why it's so important to show yourself grace. it's important to learn how, because it's easy to say show yourself grace. It's important to learn how to show yourself grace, because this isn't something that's just innate. Show yourself love on yourself. Show yourself how to be loved, so you
Yeah,
can be
find that gentleness you didn't receive and give it to yourself. It's like,
exactly
I know
exactly.
it sounds simple, but that's the game, man. We can't. I do feel. This last thing I'll say. I do feel like we've gotten confused about like how our parents have let us down on a more like majority narrative on that, where we think we can just blame and we can just be like, well, they did this to me. Nah, fam, you're an adult now. That doesn't have any bearing. This is your work now. It's not your parents' work. Like you can't just point the finger and but they did this. They may have, but guess what? Let's move out of that. Let's take a new road that you get to choose.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it doesn't excuse it, right? But hopefully, you understand it, and then likewise, is if it does have that significant of impact on you, it doesn't excuse your behavior, but we're able to understand it just a little bit more, and it's just like, okay, now how do we potentially move forward in a way that's less devastating to ourselves, and again, we don't live in a vacuum. We don't operate in a vacuum. The impact of the father wound is not only impacting the individual, a man as somebody, a self-identifying man as a father, but it's impacting you in your romantic relationships. It's impacting you in your friendships. It's impacting you at work. It's impacting you spiritually. It's impacting you on every level. Right? It's not it's as I always say, it's bigger than Nino Brown. It's bigger than self. It's literally community and impacting the world around you, because none of us live in isolation. So we're all impacted by the unhealed father wounds of others. Damn, I like that one. That was a good one. This was a this was a good one. This was a good
That's when
one,
you
man.
go, and we'll wrap it up right there.
Exactly. If my mic wasn't connected to the table, I would drop it. I'm about to unscrew it and drop it. No, this was a good one. This was well needed. Um, I got a call from my mama. I thought it was gonna be from my daughter, but I I was hoping. I believe that would have been like triple good news. But no, I definitely appreciate you coming through. How can the people reach you?
Usual. I'm only on IG. Sisyphean absurdity. One day I'll explain what that means on this podcast, just for Phil's sake. Uh, but yeah, that's all. That's the only place you can find me right now.
Word. And as always, you can reach me on all the socials at Phil_Roundtree. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, the hashtag You Good Man podcast. Share with a brother who can benefit. Like, you can leave a comment. Even if it's a negative comment, it makes the algorithm go. So I am
Yep.
here for it. Until next week, peace.